This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Goals with Soul. I'm Joanna Ingram, and I'm particularly excited today because we're going to talk about one of my favourite topics, which is about alignment. But not just in a vague way, but specifically how alignment, or indeed misalignment, can affect the income that you make in your business. And there is no better expert than my special guest today, who I'm going to introduce in just a minute. But first, to share that when I first realized that my business was out of alignment, I was in complete burnout. I realized that I wasn't spending my time in the way that I had set an intention for. Indeed, I was working really long hours, trying to do all the things and literally exhausting myself along the way. And I was also finding that although I'm somebody who is incredibly good at managing money, I'd stuck my head in the sand around a few key areas of my business. Perhaps you can relate. And some of the ways that manifested was in creating a bit of a hobby business that wasn't any fun. And I knew that that had to change immediately. And that's when the work of my guest, Karen, came into my world. She's a mentor whose work has been influential in my work and in my life, so I'm so delighted and privileged to bring her unique approach to alignment and wealth to you today. So to introduce her properly, Karen Baines is a conscious wealth mentor and founder of the Conscious Wealth Code. For over a decade, she's worked with passionate, ambitious entrepreneurs by showing them how to master their own creational process, particularly around their business and finances. One of the main areas that Karen works in is, of course, alignment, allowing you to see what you need to do differently, what to change, and how to change it. She teaches the energy of alignment and money to give you an opportunity to unlock and reach that elusive next level income. And in a nutshell, money is a very happy byproduct of alignment. And the best definition of alignment is you do you. Following many of Karen's teachings, I completely turned around the misalignment that I'd had in my business. And now one of the ways that I frequently up-level my success in all regards, not even just finances, is to make sure and check in that I'm in alignment with what I'm doing, that the energy is rising, that I'm not spending my time in obligation and resentment. And indeed, that's something that I now joyfully share with my own clients. This is an awesome conversation. Let's dive in. Hello, Karen. Welcome to Goals with Soul.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's so great to see you.
Now, I've been trying to get you on this show for a while, and I'm so excited that we're doing this chat now, because so much of business is about energetics. And, you know, I know from my work with you, the difference that it makes. So the fact that I get to share this widely with so many that I know are experiencing exactly the same that so many of us go through has got me like tingling with anticipation. I'd love to kick off. Just tell us just something about this alignment piece and why it's so important.
Well, it seems probably about the last 2 or 3 years, alignment seems to be a bit of a buzzword that everybody talks about. And I think there are a lot of different versions when it comes to the definition of alignment. And I don't know many other, I don't know other people's definitions of, I only know what my definition is. And my definition in its simplest form is that you do you. When you are in alignment, you are in the version of your gifts in terms of how you are specifically designed to add value. And I work with business owners, I work with entrepreneurs, and all of my entrepreneurs are designed to run businesses. Otherwise, they wouldn't be running businesses. They wouldn't be wanting or desiring to run a business. And they're all very heart-centered. And that tends to mean as well that is a direct soul communication from their soul as to what alignment looks like for them. So when it comes to alignment and how I talk about alignment, I use it in terms of, as long as you show up and you do you are in alignment, and the universe will always say yes to that as a vibrational frequency and bring you the consequences that are going to help you move forward in alignment as well, because alignment begets alignment. It perpetuates alignment. So when you hear that word around, it can mean many different things to many different people, it seems, especially at the moment, but that's what it means for me and the clients that I work with.
Yeah, I love that, because you're right. It is so overused, the word alignment. You see it popping up on every other feed now, and it does have different connotations for different people. And I know that straddling the worlds of strategy and energy, I found that it's something that's so important to understand where the two meet. And that's something that I know I've just adored about your work. It's one of the things that called to me most, was that you bring actionable results about money and about running your business and how to generate the energy of money. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of how that alignment and actual income meet in your world?
Well, people kind of assume quite often about me personally when they hear about me or they see me, before they actually hear me speaking, they assume that I'm, I don't know, a money mindset coach, or I clear blocks and restrictions around money, or I help people mend their relationship with money. And none of that is actually true. Those things often happen as a byproduct of working with me, but what I actually do is I teach the energetic language of money, and that happens at a frequency. It's a vibration. And what's fabulous about that is that frequency, vibration, whatever term you prefer, is the energetic language of money. It's the energetic language of the universe. So it's the energetic language of everything, really. And it doesn't actually matter what limiting beliefs you've got, what blocks and restrictions you think you have, what your ancestral patterns might be, or indeed what your money mindset is like. When it comes to the work that I do in the world, when you're working with frequency, Joe, it means that you can bypass all of that stuff. And as long as you are vibrating at a frequency that the universe can react to and say yes to, as it always does, it will always bring what you want. A lot of the work that I do just requires that you're ready to take, I don't know, 20 seconds of insane courage now and again to get out of your own way. And often you don't even need to do that. Like when you really understand how the energetics of money and the energetic language of the universe works, it's so empowering, because it means that you can do what I call leveraging the law. So you don't even need to be focused on working with the universal laws around business and money to actually impact your business and money, because what we're talking about here is alignment. And the work that I teach, I break that down into what I call the three commodities of alignment, which are money, time, and you and your business, and or your, what I call the vehicle of your desire for people that don't have businesses. And the great thing about that is that you can make such a difference in your abundance and in your money by focusing on any of those other commodities, not just about money. Because what I know and understand and what I teach my clients is that every single choice that they're making at any point in any day, and imagine the amount of choices we make every minute of every day, there isn't one choice that you make that does not broadcast whether or not you are available to receive money. Even if it's not about money or not about business, you are either broadcasting, yes, I welcome money, or no, I repel money. And the universe doesn't judge that, it just says yes. So it's about identifying those, I guess you could call them hacks, I suppose. People use the word hacks a lot. I suppose in a way, it's like shortcuts to leverage the law.
And that's one of the reasons I was so attracted to your message,
Mm.
because like, who doesn't love the idea of a shortcut or a hack?
Mm.
But I do want to say that although the work is, doing the work yourself, it takes some really bold courage, like you
Mm.
said. And I explain to us what it is about the practicalities you see over and over in the clients that you work with and the people that come into your world. What are the things that they're tending to do that's keeping them not energetically aligned, not in the frequency of attracting what it is they want most, whether that's income, clients? Well, that's what it usually tends to be, I imagine. But,
Yeah.
Sometimes whatever it is they're showing up with, what's keeping them apart in sort of actionable terms?
Well, they'll often show up stuck or overwhelmed doing all of the things. My clients, such as your adorable self, they usually get to a point in their businesses where they're doing what they consider to be all the right things and all the right actions, even the things that maybe were working before that aren't working now. And they'll show up in my world usually with those kinds of telltale signs. And often the issues, I mean, to be honest, it's never about the money. People come to me because I teach the energetic language of money and they want to make more money in their businesses. That's why they find me. But the money's the easy part, because the money is the tangible product. It's the tangible byproduct of alignment. And it's the piece that happens last, really, on the journey. So usually the issues that clients are having without realizing it are what I call the misaligned choices that they're making when it comes to their time. That's the big one these days, is how they're out of alignment when it comes to assigning value energetically to their time, and or their self-worth, their value, not just in the marketplace, but in their lives, like their boundaries. And often their mums, just like you, they've got other hats that they wear. They're CEOs, their mums, their children, they've got parents that need their support. There's so many things that not just the chicks these days, not just the girls are showing up in that way, the men as well, where the boundary work and the self-value work is out of alignment. And the reason why that's important when it comes to broadcasting energetically so that the universe can react to what you want is because money in and of itself represents value. When we spend it on that which we value. From an energetic perspective, when you devalue yourself by having wishy-washy boundaries, or you devalue your time by doing things that you don't really want to do, you're naturally vibrating at what I call a less than frequency. And because the universe says yes, it will just read the frequency of less than and bring you less than consequences. right?
Mm.
So that's what tends to happen. Like I say, these days, a lot of my entrepreneurs are they're juggling lots of balls, they're wearing lots of hats. We live in a society now that is just there is so much information that is just thrown at us every minute of every day. We live in a society that enjoys binge consumption, whether that's content or whatever it is. And there are so many coaches and programs out there and mentors and different ways to do things that we're constantly being bombarded by the best way or the most effective way to break through to your next income level or break through to your 6 figures or 7 figures and beyond. That people are pulled every which way and wind up doing things that they don't really want to do, that they think they're going to get them the results. And alignment is a very unique and personal thing to every individual. And if money is the happy byproduct of alignment and you're going out and doing misalignment with your time or with your money or with your boundaries, then it doesn't matter what you're consuming and what you do in terms of marketing, you're not going to get the breakthroughs that you want.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
Yeah, that's where I come in. So
Yeah, I mean,
out.
when you talk about time, I know that was one of the big things that I joined you to talk about, because as you're building your business, and I'd been really busy at the beginning, and then I had, lent into my feminine flow, and I'd rebalanced. And then for some reason, all the reasons, I'd retracted again. And I think that this is something that many of us experience. We get big breakthroughs, we get realizations, epiphanies, we make big changes. And then something might not be heading in the right direction, or something in our personal lives change. And then we go back to old habits. And I'd gone back to filling my calendar and just thinking that the more I did, the better I'd do, which I knew wasn't the answer.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to do the work and get new input and support to really make that a viable change. And it sounds so small, but I just want to say that this is not small. One of the things that I realized when I was working with you was that I wasn't doing enough for me. I wasn't doing things that lit me up for no reason other than creativity, passion. And that's when I took up pottery. I took up pottery when I was in your container, and I'm still doing it, and I'm getting better, and it's a deep passion. And the thing about pottery is you can't do it in a hurry. It really does take, you have to set up, you have to tidy up all that clay and dirt and stuff. And you actually have to do some creativity in the middle. And now I frequently go for 3-hour sessions. And you should see, Karen, I've got this pile of bowls in my kitchen. And if you ever come over, one of those is yours. If we ever catch up in real life, because for you listening, Karen lives like 20 minutes down the road. We've not met up in real life yet, but we're both Essex girls for British listeners out there, and live in the same time zone, which makes this call so much easier.
Yeah, it really does.
But yeah, so actually taking space in my calendar, moving out of obligation, which is something I would love for you to share more about, and actually getting into a space where what I'm doing is what I love doing more has been a big shift in now. I mean, my business has really taken off in the time since we met, and that alignment piece has been a big part of what's helping me to not just create the change and the shifts, not just sustain them, but also now sort of cascade that down, because a lot of what I've learned is what I'm now able to share here on Goals with Soul with my clients in their containers. And I think that's one of the magical parts of our industry, is that what we teach creates ripples that go further out than, just benefiting ourselves.
Absolutely.
So obligation, Karen, this piece was a big aha moment for me. So
Yeah.
I want to hear it again and share it.
Okay. Well, it's a big piece for a lot of people, even myself. I mean, your mess is your message, right? So when it comes to the energetic language of money, what exactly is obligation and what does it look like? Obligation is toxic when it comes to creating anything for a human being, particularly an entrepreneur. Okay, and here's why. So many of us are in love with the idea of financial freedom. Money represents freedom for so many people on an energetic spectrum. Often the reason why business owners and entrepreneurs are in love with the idea of running their own businesses is so that they can have freedom. So money and freedom are really close. They're like best buddies, if you like, on an energetic spectrum. Money will give you freedom when you've got it. You have access to freedom. But if you're doing obligation, so obligation can be identified by doing anything that you feel like you have to do. Have to, got to, should do, must do. If you feel that heaviness that you have to do something, or you can literally hear yourself saying over and over again during the course of any day, oh, I have to do this, I've got to do this, I must do that. You're naturally vibrating obligation. You can't think your way through that. And that's the most important part of the work that I do, and how I identify these misaligned choices with clients is because the law of attraction is such a big thing these days. People assume that you can just stay in the high vibe by thinking happy thoughts and doing what you don't really want to do. And that is not how the universe works. The energetic language of money is a frequency, and it bypasses the thought process. It just reads the frequency underneath what you're doing. So if you're doing have to, got to, should do, and must do, the universe law of attraction in particular, which is one of the laws that governs us, it will read that frequency and it will say, yes, here you are, Joe, have some more obligation. You want obligation in your life, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. So here's obligation. It brings you more opportunities to do obligation. Obligation is the opposite of freedom. So if you're doing obligation, you're not vibrating money. You cannot create freedom out of obligation. You cannot be a vibrational match for money when you're doing obligation. And if an entrepreneur comes to me and they're spending all their time in their businesses and their lives doing all the things they think they have to, they've got to do, they should do, or they must do, and a lot of them are, they're not vibrating money.
So true. Like you're going to love this story because, well, I remember during our time working together, one of the things that I got into obligation about was processing the episodes for this podcast. And I'd created so many episodes. I had this massive backlog that then became overwhelming, and I wasn't delegating it efficiently to my podcast team. And it got to a point that I was week to week. It was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get another episode out this week? Even though I had a whole stack of them in the bank, ready to go. And I'd just become so obligated by the fact that it needed admin time, it needed thought. And you encouraged me to clear that as much as possible because that was really blocking my energy. And at the time I did so. It won't please you too much to learn that I did allow a similar thing to happen as we led towards this summer. And, I sat there and I was like, right, cannot be an obligation. What am I going to do about this? And I had a choice to sort it out or something else. And I asked myself, what would it look like to take a summer hiatus from the podcast? Now, bear in mind, I've been podcasting for, well over 2 years, 150 plus episodes, and I'd never missed a week, never. Just like in my business, I'd never missed a day in 18 months posting on social media until I gave myself permission not to, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to gift myself a summer of peace. And, we're recording this during the summer because it's going to come out in season 5 in the autumn. But other than that, I was like, it's okay to go off air for a while. And I accepted that could mean that perhaps my global ranking might go down. And I was like, this is no problem. I'm at 2.5% global ranking. If it drops back to 3% or whatever, this is just ego. It's just vanity metrics. Chill. The interesting thing is, just before we jumped on this interview, I popped in to Listen Notes, which is the source of that global ranking data. And get this, top 2% now. I've gone up, even though I went off air several weeks ago. Riddle me that, Karen. I'm sure you can, right?
I absolutely love my job. That is it. That is you in alignment. So, to kind of unravel that a little bit, you chose freedom. That was aligned for you. Like if you'd been doing the podcast over the summer or whatever, it would have vibrated. You would have been doing obligation. So instead, even though it required you to like be quite brave, put your big girl pants on, as I say, because you didn't want to drop out of the ratings and all of that, you did that anyway. And that was aligned. You chose freedom energetically because you were giving yourself space and peace and time. And the universe has brought you consequences of freedom, consequences of alignment, and you've gone up the rankings instead of down as a result of that. Which means that more people will get to hear, hopefully, this broadcast and all the other broadcasts, and it won't be long before you'll be up at number one. And so it's fascinating for people, and often it's counterintuitive. It's completely counterintuitive, and that's where the courage lies. But when you really truly understand the energetic language of money, which is one of the things that I teach in terms of being able to teach my clients this stuff so that they can do it for themselves, so that they don't need me anymore. You know, I want clients to understand, I want people to understand how powerful this is so that they can unravel it themselves, just like you did. It doesn't mean that it's going to require less courage, but you gather the evidence. You gather the evidence when you, like, this becomes a way of being. And you can't deny evidence, and your ego has less power when you've got the evidence to support what alignment looks like for you and how powerful you really are. You can quieten the ego a lot quicker.
Now, Karen, like, tell us a bit about how you got into what you do. I mean, clearly this is so embodied and it's so integral to everything that you teach. How did you get on the path to be where you are now?
Well, so when it comes to the money stuff, money has always talked to me. It talked to me back when I didn't have any. I mean, and I came from, you know, as you've already mentioned, I like live in Essex. I came from a one-parent family. My mum, I've got a brother and a sister as well. She held down 3 jobs looking after us. We never had money. And but in front of me, I had the version of my dad's wealth because he always had money. And it was also clear in there was like a clear divide between my mum and her brothers and sisters. Like her oldest sister went to Oxford University and married a solicitor. And there was always this divide. And somewhere inside, I knew that that's not the way it was meant to be, but I just had this knowing. I just didn't know what it was. And I also was on, from a very young age, around about 11 and like 11 years old. And back then it wasn't the norm, but from a very young age, I was on what I call a journey of self-development. I was fascinated by, I was convinced that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken. And so went on a decades-long journey trying to fix that. And obviously I don't, that's not what I practice now. Like nobody that is listening to this is broken or needs fixing, not at all. But I went through a period of 2 or 3 years where I learned many healing modalities as a way to try and fix myself. But I also started to run my own bookkeeping business as a result of, it was a golden breadcrumb of alignment back then that I didn't realize that's what it was. But my husband started running his own business. I needed to know how to fill out a tax return because we couldn't afford to have anyone else do it. I was introduced to an accountant who realized that I had a talent for that and encouraged me to take my exams and become a bookkeeper. So I ran my own bookkeeping business very successfully once my youngest, who is now 18, once he was sort of 2 or 3 years old, I started running my own bookkeeping business. Up until then, I say just loosely, trust me, but I'd just been a mum and a wife. I hadn't done anything else from the minute I left school. So being a business owner and all those responsibilities was very alien to me. And at the same time, I had this other life, as it were, where I was doing a personal development journey that turned into a more of a spiritual journey. And the universe was kind of encouraging me to merge the two, and I was very against it. I did everything I could for a long time to keep them very compartmentalized and those two parts of my life very separate. But one day I just had no choice, because I was finding that I was having conversations with bookkeeping clients and I was looking at their accounts, and I just knew the reasons why they weren't making money. I just knew. And a lot of the time it wasn't anything to do with their businesses at all. So that was when I merged the two, and I started to, I trained also as an Akashic record soul realignment practitioner. So I'm very well versed in the Akashic records. All of these different things kind of came together, and where I am now, I'm not going to say the finished product, but the work that I do now and bring to the world is a glorious combination of all the things that I've done up until probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And now we're just up leveling that work. And obviously I live my alignment. There's no other way to do it. And it's a work in progress. My work is a work in progress, but thankfully I've got lots of people that can really benefit from what it is I teach. But it was all very organic, Joanna.
I love hearing all of that. And there's definite similarities in what you're saying from looking at my own journey, from those 20 years working in advertising agencies, whilst embarking on my own spiritual journey and keeping that so hidden and separate from my corporate life, and then launching my business in the pandemic, and then being disconnected from those 20 years of experience in marketing and not wanting to pull them into what I was now developing as a more spiritual business. But when the two came together, as you described, as a happy collision, it was like an ignition. Suddenly everything came together in who I was working with and the messaging specifics in what I do. And hearing your story, it just thrills me, because it's more affirmation about how powerful it is when you join the dots, which of course is what soul messaging is all about.
Yes.
So, it's just like seeing other entrepreneurs who are exploding their businesses, and like you're saying, you're in a scaling process now, and I've been admiring how you're putting yourself out there at the next level, and just knowing that combination is what so many people need to help them make progress and outcomes. Is just gorgeous. So I could talk all day to you specifically, although I could talk all day anyway, but right now I would love for us to just keep going and chew the fat for hours more, but sadly we got to draw this one to a close on this occasion. But first, I'd love to ask you to share some inspired action for those listeners And I know it's many people listening right now are just where I was then, and where we often circle back around to. We start feeling overwhelmed in our calendars. We start worrying about, how our income's going to increase, and, things aren't getting any easier in the world. What's some inspired action that we could take today, this week, that will help us move towards more expansive time, freedom, and money?
Well, I'm going to go with money, because money represents freedom. And if you've got more money, you've got more choices. And that's what I teach, the energetic language of money. And this is the tip that I share with everybody when I am delivering a masterclass, or I'm on a podcast interview, or whatever, because it is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And it's also where you're going to get a really big bang, what I call a really big bang for your buck. So just to explain the energetics behind it, and this will really it gives so many people that light bulb moment, which is why I know that's one of the reasons why it's so powerful. So, as I've already explained, the universe says yes. It says yes to every single thing that you do. When you make a choice, that is a practical thing that you do. That choice vibrates at a frequency. The universe reads the frequency and brings you more of that frequency. So obligation begets obligation. Sacrifice begets sacrifice. Joy begets joy. So the more things that you do that vibrate joy, the more joy you'll have in your life, because the universe just reads the frequency and says, yes, here you are, have some more of that. Okay, so that's how it works. That's the manifesting process broken down into its simplest form, right? So if that's the case, when you don't deal with your money, whatever that looks like, the universe will say yes to that as well. If you don't want to deal with your money, there'll be no money for you to deal with. If you ignore money, if you don't check your bank accounts, if you don't raise your invoices or go after making sure your credit control is in order, if you know that it's time to raise your prices in your business and you don't, if you've been thinking about changing your internet provider or your energy supplier, or moving over to a 0% credit card, and you just think to yourself, oh, I'll get to that. When I've got time, I'll do that. And then you don't do it. That is somewhere you're ignoring your money. Anything to do with money that you're avoiding or you're putting off doing, energetically, you're ignoring it. And we ignore what we don't want in our lives. And the universe will say yes to that. If you don't want to deal with your money, there'll be no money for you to deal with. So that is the most powerful thing you can do. Whilst I'm speaking, what usually happens is your soul is getting very excited and communicating with you the one or two things that you can do that are going to move the needle of alignment, as I call it. So what have you been putting off when it comes to money? Go do those. Prioritize those. Some things may take literally less than a minute to do.
Now, I want to share something I did with this exercise, because for me, so I'd started out being really fastidious about creating spreadsheets. I come out of a data-driven role in an advertising agency. So it was all about Excel. And I was like, in fact, I even started teaching entrepreneurs about being sort of CEO mindset, and being more in control and setting up spreadsheets and setting goals. And it was all about accountability and productivity. Then I got burned out and I re-emerged in flow, in alignment, and a lot more with a spiritual message. But what happened in my business was that I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. I was like, I'm no longer going to set goals, because if I don't hit them, I'm going to feel less than, and then that feeling the universe will give me more of that. So better I don't look. I've got my little hands over my eyes right now. It's like just don't look, and then whatever flows through financially is just lovely. And then I realized not too long ago, I was like, this is crazy, enough. And I reestablished some tracking spreadsheets, doing some projections for the year ahead and tracking the clients that started to work with me and how long they were staying and whether they were staying again, all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that this was the one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but over that period of time, things have looked really, really good on that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
There have been some really lovely moments that, I'm sustaining, putting it out there for the universe because the energy is so good. And that is something that I sort of, from what you're saying, it sounds like exactly what needs to be done. Well, for me and my business. So this is super powerful work to find out what you're not doing.
Really is powerful. Just to kind of wrap it up, if you like, and this is without judgment. Remember, the universe doesn't judge, it just says yes, and I've got no right to judge either. But it might sound a bit harsh, but this is the truth. Money naturally vibrates before you spend it. It naturally vibrates at a frequency of responsibility and power. If you are designed to be a business owner and you are designed to create income and money by adding value to the lives of other people through your gifts, then by definition, if you aren't tracking your money and you don't know what's going on with your finances in your business, you are being irresponsible. You have a responsibility to know what's going on with your finances if you are designed to make money through a business. And if you're not, you're being irresponsible. And if money vibrates naturally at a frequency of responsibility and you're being irresponsible, you're not a vibrational match for money.
Phew, I'm pleased I'm back on track.
Yeah, there you go.
Karen, thank you. This is so much fun. And of course, it's just so many light bulb moments going off as well. So if for anyone that wants to find out more about your work or connect with you online, where would you suggest they go?
The easiest and quickest way to find me is on Facebook, Karen Baines, Conscious Wealth Mentor. And anyone can send me a direct message. They can send me a friend request and just say, hey, I heard you on Joanna's podcast, blah, blah, blah. And you probably won't find, I wouldn't advise Instagram. You're always going to get a response from me if you hook up with me on Facebook Messenger, or you can send me an email, karen@soulwhispers.uk, and I'm sure that Joe will make sure that that's out there. And yeah, that's how you can get hold of me.
Fantastic. Now, haven't you got something gorgeous that people can do to find out a little bit more about their own money alignment?
I have indeed. They can go over and complete what I call my money alignment assessment. And this will be your shortcut. So if you fill that assessment out, it'll take you about 10 minutes usually, and submit those answers to me. That thing will light up like a Christmas tree for me, and I will be able to see exactly where you can get a big bang for your buck. And I will invite you to come speak to me or send you my feedback on the quickest, shortest route that you can take to get back into alignment or move that needle of alignment in terms of what you've got going on right now in your current situation. There is always something that will show up for me, and it'll be very quick and easy for me to see it. So Fantastic. You can absolutely go ahead and fill out my money alignment assessment.
And thank you, Karen. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you for joining us on Goals with Soul today.
Thank you, Joanna. It's been an absolute pleasure for me too.
My thanks to Karen again for sharing her wisdom. You can find all of her links in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode and are enjoying listening to Goals with Soul, please do hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you get each new episode directly into your downloads. And if you're listening over on Apple Podcasts, please do leave us a 5-star review. Reviews are so influential when it comes to sharing podcasts with those who may also receive a lot of value from the content. So if you have a bestie who would also love to listen into Goals with Soul, please do share this podcast with them so we can continue to grow and to spread our message of the balance between strategy and energetics when it comes to building your business in alignment. And so have an inspired action week. Take care. Bye now.